Lieutenant Jin stood at his console on the viewing deck of the UES Harmony, his eyes fixed on the massive Keldari vessel outside. The alien ship dwarfed their diplomatic vessel, its hull covered in strange markings and what looked like weapon ports. Jin's hands trembled slightly as he worked. Humanity had only reached beyond their solar system 30 years ago. The Keldari, according to intelligence, had ruled hundreds of worlds for thousands of years. "It's like a city in space," whispered Ensign Lee beside him. Jin nodded. "A heavily armed city." Captain Park entered the bridge, her uniform crisp despite the tense days leading to this first official contact. Her short black hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes missed nothing as she surveyed her crew. "Status report," she demanded, her voice controlled but tight. Jin straightened his posture. "All systems working properly, Captain. The Keldari have accepted our transmission and should be responding soon." The bridge crew waited in silence. Earth had prepared for this moment since first detecting the alien signals 5 years ago. The diplomatic team had rehearsed countless greetings and responses. Jin's console suddenly lit up with warnings. His heart sank as he read the energy signatures. Energy spike. They're powering weapons. Captain Park's eyes widened. Raise shields. Evasive maneuvers. Her orders came too late. The first blast tore through the Harmony's hull near the engine room. The ship rocked violently. Jin was thrown from his station, hitting the deck hard. "Return fire," Park ordered, helping a fallen officer to her feet. Weapons Officer Moon shook his head. "We can't, Captain. Our weapons are diplomatic grade only. We don't have the firepower to damage their hull." More blasts hit the Harmony. Emergency lights flashed as the main power failed. Jin pulled himself back to his station, trying to send a warning to Earth. "Captain, we're losing life support," reported Engineer Ba from below decks, his voice crackling over the damaged comms. Park's face hardened. "All hands to escape pods. Send the emergency signal." Jin finished inputting the distress code just as another blast rocked the ship. The console exploded in his face, throwing him backward. As darkness closed in, his last thought was of Earth, completely unprepared for what was coming. The attack on the Harmony was just the beginning. Within 3 days, reports came in from Proxima Centauri, humanity's first colony. The Keldari arrived without warning, their ships darkening the skies above settlements. On the colony world New Sol, families ran for shelters as alien ships fired on cities. Orbital defense platforms, designed more to handle asteroids than invasion, fell quickly. By the 4th day, the colony went silent. Similar reports came from Alpha Centauri and the mining outposts in the Ta Ceres system. Earth's modest defense fleet scrambled to respond, but they were outmatched in both numbers and technology. Admiral Shin watched grimly as the reports came into Earth Defense Command. "They're methodically cutting us off," he told the other officers, "taking out our colonies one by one." General Yoon slammed his fist on the table. "But why? We gave them no cause for this." Communications Officer 1, who had specialized in xenolinguistics, spoke up. "Based on the few transmissions we've intercepted, they see us as a threat, not for what we've done, but for what we might become." Earth's United Defense Council convened an emergency meeting. Representatives from all nations gathered in the underground bunker in New Geneva, faces grim as they viewed the mounting casualties. "We've lost contact with all outer colonies," reported Defense Minister Ryu. "The inner colonies are under heavy attack. Our ships are being destroyed almost as soon as they engage." President Cho looked around the table. "Options." The silence was deafening until a voice spoke from the back of the room. "We build something they've never seen before." Heads turned to see Commander Hyun, a naval engineer known for her unconventional designs. She walked to the display table, her movements precise despite having been awake for the past 72 hours. "The Keldari believe us primitive and weak," she said, projecting schematics onto the display. The hologram showed a ship unlike any in Earth's fleet, larger, more heavily armed, with systems that seemed impossible. I propose we build something they cannot comprehend, a vessel incorporating both our ingenuity and their recovered technology. Recovered technology? Asked Minister Song. Yes, Hyun confirmed. From the wreckage of a scout ship our forces managed to disable near Mars. We've been studying it in secret for months. Admiral Kang, the highest-ranking naval officer present, studied the designs with a frown. This would require resources we don't have. We don't have the resources to survive otherwise, Hyun countered. Her eyes swept the room. This ship would be our answer to their overwhelming force, a single vessel that could stand against their fleets. One ship cannot win a war, General Yum argued. No, Hyun agreed, but it can change the course of one. Give us hope. Show the Caldari that humans are not to be underestimated. The debate raged for hours. Earth's manufacturing capacity was limited. Diverting resources to this project would leave colonies vulnerable. Yet every report showed those colonies falling regardless of current defense efforts. As dawn broke over New Geneva, President Cho called for a vote. Tired hands raised one by one, until the decision was unanimous. Project Thunderchild is approved, he announced. Commander Hyun will have full authority and resources. Hyun nodded, already mentally assembling her team. As the meeting adjourned, Admiral Kang approached her. You understand what you're promising? He asked quietly. The fate of our species may rest on this ship. Hyun's tired eyes met his. I understand. The Caldari expect us to fight as they would, with ships and tactics they understand. We won't. We'll show them something new. That evening, as the first resources were diverted to the secret shipyards in Earth orbit, another colony fell silent. But for the first time since the attacks began, there was a glimmer of hope. Project Thunderchild had begun, and with it, humanity's true response to the Caldari threat was taking shape. The orbital shipyard around Jupiter glowed with constant activity. Work lights blazed at all hours, and transport ships arrived daily with materials harvested from across the solar system. What had once been a research station was now humanity's last hope. Commander Hyun hadn't slept properly in weeks. She moved through the station's corridors with a tablet in hand, reviewing updates from various teams. Dark circles hung under her eyes, but her focus never wavered. Commander, you should rest, urged her assistant, a young lieutenant named Sun. Hyun shook her head. The Caldari don't rest. Neither can we. The main construction bay stretched for nearly a kilometer. Through the massive viewport, Hyun could see the skeleton of Thunderchild taking shape. Workers in spacesuits crawled over its frame like ants, welding sections together and installing systems. Engineer Choi met her at the observation deck. His normally neat appearance had given way to rumpled clothes and messy hair. We have a problem, he said without greeting. The power systems won't integrate with the alien tech. Look at these simulation results. He handed her his tablet. The data showed catastrophic failure in all test scenarios. Hyun studied the numbers, her heart sinking. We recovered enough of their tech to understand how it works, Choi continued, but when we try to connect our systems to theirs, everything fails. Other engineers gathered around, their faces showing the same exhaustion and worry. For 3 months, they had worked to incorporate Caldari technology into the Thunderchild's design. Without it, the ship would be just another target. Hyun stared out at the half-built vessel. We're thinking like humans trying to copy Caldari designs. She turned back to her team. Let's approach this differently. What can we do that they can't? What do you mean? Asked Engineer Min. The Caldari have been using the same technology for centuries. They refine it, but they don't innovate. We've been trying to catch up to them. But what if we go in a different direction? The team worked through the night, abandoning their attempts to copy alien technology. Instead, they focused on human ingenuity and adaptability. 3 months later, Engineer Min burst into Hyun's office, out of breath and smiling for the first time in months. It works, he gasped. The modular weapon platforms, they work. Hyun followed him to the testing lab. The small prototype they had built demonstrated how the Thunderchild's weapons could reconfigure during battle, changing frequency and output to adapt to enemy defenses. The Kildare use fixed weapon systems, Min explained. Powerful, but predictable. Ours can change on the fly. The breakthrough energized the team. Within weeks, they developed a revolutionary shield technology based on principles of wave interference rather than energy absorption. The shields would bend and redirect enemy fire rather than simply blocking it. The Kildare won't know how to counter this, said Engineer Ba during the demonstration. They've never seen anything like it. The good news came as it was desperately needed. Colonel June arrived from Earth with updates from the front lines. New Mars has fallen, he reported grimly. 15,000 colonists. We lost contact yesterday. The mood in the station darkened. New Mars had been one of the inner colonies with significant defenses. If it had fallen, the Kildare were getting closer to Earth. How much longer? June asked Hyun privately. 6 months, maybe less if we push harder. Earth may not have 6 months. Hyun nodded. I know. We'll find a way to work faster. The construction schedule intensified. Workers took stimulants to stay awake for longer shifts. Safety protocols were shortened. Accidents happened more frequently, but no one complained. 4 months later, Counselor Kim arrived from the Earth government to inspect their progress. He walked beside Hyun through the station, frowning at the resources being consumed. We're diverting resources from civilian projects, he warned. People are questioning the project's scale. Food rationing has begun in some regions. Medical supplies are running short. Hyun stopped at a viewport, showing him the nearly completed Thunderchild. The massive ship now had its outer hull in place, weaponry installed, and engines mounted. When they see Thunderchild in action, there will be no more questions, she promised. Kim didn't look convinced. And if it fails, if after all this sacrifice, the ship is destroyed in its first battle, then at least we tried something bold instead of dying slowly, Hyun replied. In the final months, the work never stopped. Engineers tested and retested systems. Military personnel arrived to train on the new technology. Captain Tae, selected to command the vessel, studied its capabilities day and night. The bridge design is unlike anything I've ever seen, he commented during a tour. Because you'll fight unlike anything the Kildare have ever seen, Hyun responded. 14 months after the first Kildare attack, Thunderchild was ready. The construction cradle's massive arms released the battleship into space. Supply ships brought final provisions. Crew members said goodbye to loved ones, knowing they might never return. Hyun stood at the airlock as Captain Tai prepared to board. The ship can do everything we designed it to do, she told him. But its true power will come from how you use it. Ta nodded. We won't let you down. From the observation deck, Hyun watched as the Thunderchild's engines glowed to life. The massive ship moved away from Jupiter with surprising grace, sleek despite its size, bristling with weapons, and unlike anything humanity had built before. As it disappeared into the darkness, bound for its first mission, Hyun finally allowed herself a moment of rest. Whether humanity would survive now depended on Captain Tai and his crew, and the ship she had built to defy an empire. The bridge of the UES Thunderchild hummed with tense energy. The massive room was unlike any other human ship, wider with workstations arranged in concentric circles around the captain's platform. Screens displayed data in three-dimensional projections that crew members manipulated with precise hand gestures. Captain Taz stood at the center, his uniform crisp and his posture perfect. He had been chosen from hundreds of qualified officers to command humanity's last hope. The responsibility weighed on him, but he kept his face calm as he studied his crew. 5 minutes until we reach Alpha Centauri, announced Navigator Han. Ta nodded. All stations, final checks. Each of the 87 crew members had volunteered for this mission. They knew the odds. In the 6 weeks since leaving Jupiter, they had trained constantly on the ship's revolutionary systems. "Captain," called Lieutenant Song from the sensor station. "I'm getting readings from the research outpost." "Life signs?" "Yes, sir. Faint, but present. The station's defenses are down." Tay's jaw tightened. The Alpha Centauri research station housed 300 scientists and their families. It had sent distress signals 3 days ago before going silent. "Show me the system," Tay ordered. A hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, displaying the Alpha Centauri system. The research station orbited the second planet. Around it hovered 7 Keldari warships. "Sensors detect 7 Keldari warships in orbit around the station," reported Lieutenant Song. Her voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "They've noticed us." The hologram updated, showing one of the alien ships breaking away from the station and moving toward Thunderchild. "They're sending only one ship to intercept," said Weapons Officer Min. "They don't consider us a threat." Tay's lips curved into a small, hard smile. "Their mistake. Communications, broadcast in all frequencies. Let them know we're coming." Communications Officer Ba nodded. "Broadcasting now, Captain." The message was simple. "This is Captain Ta of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. We are here for our people. Leave now or be destroyed." On the main screen, they watched the approaching Keldari cruiser. It was larger than Thunderchild, with a design that resembled a predatory sea creature. Its surface glowed with weapon ports powering up. "They're charging weapons," reported Song. "Energy signatures match previous Keldari attacks." The bridge crew tensed. Until now, those energy signatures had meant death for human ships. "Shield modulators at maximum," ordered Ta calmly. "Weapons hot." The first Keldari blast struck Thunderchild head-on. In the past, such a hit would have torn through a human vessel. Instead, the revolutionary shields bent and redirected the energy, dispersing it harmlessly into space. "Shields holding at 92%, reported Defense Officer Ryu with barely contained excitement. "Target their forward weapon ports," Tay ordered. "Fire sequence Alpha." Thunderchild's response was devastating. Its adaptive weapon systems fired in a pattern that seemed random but was carefully calculated. The energy beams changed frequency as they traveled, bypassing Keldari shields designed to block fixed frequencies. The alien ship shuddered as the blasts tore into it. On screen, the crew watched as explosions rippled across its hull. "Direct hits," said Min. "Their forward shields are down." The Keldari vessel fired again, more desperately this time. Thunderchild rocked slightly, but held. "Shields at 84%, Ryu reported, reconfiguring to match their new attack pattern. 3 more Keldari ships broke formation around the station, moving to join the fight. They spread out, trying to surround Thunderchild. "Sir, we're about to be outflanked," warned First Officer Lee. Tai studied the system display, noting the large gas giant nearby. A plan formed in his mind. Risky, but potentially decisive. "Navigator, plot course for the gas giant." "Full speed." Han looked startled but quickly entered the commands. "Course plotted, sir." "Execute." Thunderchild surged forward, seemingly retreating from the battle. The Keldari ships followed, firing continuously. "They think we're running," said Lee, understanding dawning on his face. "Let them think that," Tay replied. "Weapons, prepare all ports for simultaneous discharge on my mark. Defense, channel extra power to rear shields." As Thunderchild approached the gas giant, its massive gravity began to pull at the ship. Alarms sounded as stresses on the hull increased. "Structural integrity at 85%, warned Engineer Ju from engineering. "Captain, we've never tested the frame at these gravitational forces." "Trust the ship, Engineer," Ta said. "Navigator, execute slingshot maneuver." Han's fingers flew over his controls. Slingshot trajectory locked in. Thunderchild curved around the gas giant's upper atmosphere, using its gravity to accelerate to speeds no human ship had achieved before. The pursuing Keldari ships, heavier and less maneuverable, struggled to adjust their course. "Now." Ta commanded as they completed the slingshot. Thunderchild spun on its axis, every weapon port firing simultaneously as they shot straight toward the disorganized Keldari formation. The aliens had no time to raise their forward shields. 2 enemy ships exploded immediately. A third spun out of control, its engines dead. The fourth managed to return fire, but its blasts were absorbed by Thunderchild's shields. "Target the lead ship's power core," ordered Ta. Thunderchild's main cannon fired, a beam of energy that changed properties 3 times before impact. It cut through the Keldari vessel like paper, triggering a chain reaction that tore the ship apart. The remaining 3 Keldari vessels, still in orbit around the research station, began to retreat. "They're running," said Song in disbelief. "Let them go," Tad ordered. "They'll spread the word. Communications, contact the research station." Hours later, as rescue shuttles transferred the surviving scientists to Thunderchild, Tav stood at the view screen watching the debris of 4 destroyed Keldari warships. The impossible had happened. Humanity had won its first victory. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "It's time to show them what we can do." Earth welcomed Thunderchild home as heroes. News of their victory at Alpha Centauri had spread across all human settlements, bringing hope where there had been only despair. Crowds gathered at viewports and orbital stations to catch a glimpse of the massive battleship. Inside the main shipyard, the vessel underwent rapid modifications. Engineers worked day and night, applying lessons learned from the first battle. Captain Tab reviewed the combat data with his officers, identifying weaknesses and developing new tactics. "The Keldari adapted to our modulating weapons by the end of the battle," he noted, pointing to the data on his screen. "We need to stay ahead of them." Commander Hyun, who had joined them from Jupiter, nodded. "We're installing improved modulators that can change patterns more quickly. They won't be able to predict the shifts." 3 days after their return, the crew was summoned to a briefing with Admiral Kang. The Admiral's face was stern as he addressed them in the secure conference room. "Your success at Alpha Centauri has changed everything," he began. "For the first time, we have proof the Keldari can be defeated, but one victory isn't enough." He activated the room's holographic display, showing a map of nearby star systems. Red markers indicated Keldari-controlled areas, which far outnumbered the blue of human space. "We're going on the offensive," Admiral Kang announced. "Thunderchild will lead a battle group targeting Keldari supply lines." Captain Tai studied the proposed targets. A direct assault on their main fleet would be suicide, even for Thunderchild. "Exactly," agreed Kang. "That's why we'll strike where they're vulnerable, cut off their supplies, disrupt their communications, force them to spread their forces thin." The battle group assembled quickly. 6 smaller, faster ships built using some of Thunderchild's technology. They couldn't match the flagship's power, but they were far superior to previous human vessels. 2 weeks after returning to Earth, Thunderchild led its battle group back into space. Their first target, a Keldari fuel depot near Sirius. "No warning this time," Ta told his crew as they approached. "We hit hard and fast, then disappear before reinforcements arrive." The attack was over in minutes. Thunderchild's weapons tore through the depot's defenses, while the smaller ships targeted the few guards. By the time Keldari reinforcements arrived, the human ships had already jumped away. Similar raids followed over the next weeks. A communications relay near Ta City, a shipyard at Epsilon Eridani, a supply convoy bound for the front lines. Each time, the human ships struck without warning and vanished before the Keldari could mount an effective response. "They're starting to fear us," said First Officer Lee after their 5th successful mission. Intercepted communications show they're calling Thunderchild the ghost ship. Captain Tai allowed himself a small smile. Fear is a weapon too. 2 months into their campaign, Thunderchild's sensors detected a Keldari transport fleet near Proxima Centauri. It was a rich target. Supply ships laden with resources taken from human colonies. 6 transport vessels with escort, reported Sensor Officer Han. "The escorts are different." Tai studied the sensor readings. Not Caldari design. Identify. Morith vessels, sir, Han replied. One of the species conquered by the Caldari hegemony. Ta considered this information. The Morith were known to be unwilling servants of the Caldari, forced to provide ships and crews to their masters. Target the Caldari transports only, he ordered. Avoid damaging the Morith if possible. Thunderchild and its battle group engage, weapons firing in coordinated patterns. 2 Caldari transports exploded immediately. The others began emergency maneuvers while the Morith escorts moved to intercept. The Morith vessels are breaking formation, reported Sensor Officer Han suddenly. They're standing down. On the main screen, the crew watched as the alien ships powered down their weapons and moved away from the battle. Are they surrendering? Asked Weapons Officer Min. No, said Communications Officer Bai, listening to incoming transmissions. They're simply refusing to fight. With the escorts neutralized, the remaining Caldari transports fell quickly. Tai ordered boarding parties to capture one intact, along with its crew. The interrogation of captured Caldari officers revealed a changing situation throughout the hegemony. Stories of the human battleship that could not be destroyed had spread among all species. For the first time in centuries, the Caldari faced resistance not just from humans, but from their own vassals. They speak of your ship with fear, admitted one Caldari commander. They say it appears from nowhere, cannot be harmed, and leaves only destruction. As word of this spread among human forces, morale soared. Colonies that had been lost began to be reclaimed. More ships were built incorporating Thunderchild's technology. But the Caldari were not defeated. They adapted their tactics, set traps, prepared ambushes. And eventually, one succeeded. Near the edge of human space, Thunderchild responded to a distress call from what appeared to be a human mining vessel. As they approached, sensors detected no Caldari presence. Something's wrong, muttered Navigator Cho, studying the readings. The asteroid field is too dense for clear scans. Too late, they realized the trap. A dozen Caldari warships emerged from hiding, their weapons already firing. These were different. Elite vessels with improved shielding and weapons designed specifically to counter Thunderchild's systems. Evasive maneuvers, shouted Ta as the first blast struck. The ship rocked violently. Alarms blared throughout every deck. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, shouted Engineer Lee as explosions rocked the ship. Smoke filled the bridge as damaged circuits overloaded. Crew members worked frantically to keep systems online. Shields failing, reported Defense Officer Ryu. We've lost weapons on the port side. Captain Tay made the hardest decision of his career. All ships, emergency retreat. Jump to emergency coordinates. Thunderchild limped away from the battle, its hull torn open in multiple places. The smaller ships of the battle group provided covering fire, 2 of them destroyed in the process. 3 days later, the damaged vessel arrived back in Earth orbit, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from unrepaired sections. But it had survived. And as news spread of how Thunderchild had escaped an ambush specifically designed to destroy it, its legend only grew. In the shipyard, as repair crews swarmed over the damaged battleship, Captain Ta stood with Commander Hyun, surveying the damage. They're getting smarter, he said quietly. Next time, they'll have even better countermeasures. Hyun nodded grimly. Then we'll just have to be smarter still. Alarms blared throughout Earth's orbital shipyards. Emergency crews rushed through corridors as defense systems activated. The warning had come from the outer system sensors. A massive Caldari fleet had entered the solar system, headed directly for Earth. Commander Hyun ran to the repair bay where Thunderchild sat partially disassembled. Repair crews worked frantically, trying to complete at least the essential systems. The ship's hull still showed massive damage from its last battle. Captain Ta met her at the main airlock, his face grim. How bad is it? Worst case scenario, Hyun replied. Over 200 ships. They've committed everything they have. Chief Engineer Lee approached them, wiping grease from his hands. "We're not ready," he reported. "The main power systems aren't fully integrated. Weapons are at 60% capacity. Shields might hold for a few minutes at best." Captain Ta walked to the viewport, studying his damaged ship. The proud vessel that had given humanity its first victories now looked broken and vulnerable. Then he turned to face his officers. "We don't have a choice. Prepare for immediate departure." Within hours, Thunderchild's crew had returned to their posts. Systems were brought online, some still showing warning lights. The shipyard's massive doors opened as the battleship eased forward on maneuvering thrusters. Outside, Earth's remaining defense forces gathered. A collection of hastily armed civilian ships, older military vessels, and a few newer ones built with technology derived from Thunderchild. Against the approaching Keldari armada, they looked pitifully few. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Kang coordinated the defense from his command ship. His face appeared on Thunderchild's main screen. "Captain Tai, we didn't expect to see you joining us." "Wouldn't miss it. Admiral, what's the situation?" Kang's expression darkened. "They'll be in range within 2 hours. Our long-range scans show something at the center of their fleet, a ship unlike anything we've seen before." The sensor data appeared on screen. At the heart of the Keldari fleet loomed a vessel 3 times larger than any previously encountered, the Hegemony's flagship. "They've committed their supreme command," Kang noted. "They mean to end this today." As the Keldari fleet approached, Earth's defenders took positions. Despite its damaged state, Thunderchild moved to the front of the formation. "All ships, form on Thunderchild," Tai ordered over the fleet-wide channel. "We have one chance at this." The smaller vessels arranged themselves around the battleship, following the battle plan Tai had hastily developed. It wasn't much of a plan. Their only hope was to concentrate fire on key targets and pray that some ships survived long enough to make a difference. "Enemy fleet entering weapons range," announced Lieutenant Song. "All ships," Ta commanded, "fire on designated targets." The battle for Earth began in earnest. The void between the planets lit up with energy weapons and explosions. Thunderchild's adaptive systems performed better than expected, its weapons cutting through several Keldari vessels in the first exchange. But the aliens kept coming. Their numbers were too great, their formations too tight. Ships on both sides fell in staggering numbers. But the Keldari pressed forward, their superior forces telling. On Thunderchild's bridge, systems failed one by one. A direct hit had taken out the main shield generators. Another had destroyed the port weapons array. Smoke filled the air as damage control teams fought to keep the ship functioning. "Hull integrity at 30%, reported Engineer-Lee over the crackling comms. "We can't take much more of this." Captain Ta stood amid the chaos, watching as the massive Keldari flagship approached Earth. Its weapons were already targeting the planet's surface. If it got within range, millions would die in the first volley. He made his final decision. "Clear the bridge," he ordered. "All hands to evacuation stations." First Officer Lee stared at him. "Sir." "That's an order, officer. Get our people off this ship." As the bridge crew reluctantly left their posts, Ta took manual control of navigation. He plotted a direct course toward the Keldari flagship. "Set course for their flagship," he told the ship's computer. "Maximum power to engines." Navigator Kim, who had refused to leave, looked up from his station. "Sir, the structural integrity want." "I know," Ta said quietly. "Send the evacuation order. I'll handle this." Throughout Thunderchild, crew members rushed to escape pods. Some stayed behind. Engineering teams ensuring the engines would hold long enough. Damage control keeping critical systems online for a few minutes more. Kim was the last to leave the bridge. "It's been an honor, Captain." Ta nodded, not taking his eyes from the controls. "Tell them what we did here. Tell them about Thunderchild." As escape pods jettisoned from the human battleship, Ta guided the wounded vessel directly toward the Keldari flagship. The enemy commander, recognizing the threat too late, attempted evasive maneuvers. Tai opened a channel to the Keldari ship, broadcasting on all frequencies. "From humanity, with love," he said, and cut the safeties on Thunderchild's power core. The Thunderchild, its revolutionary power core deliberately destabilized, struck the alien vessel with the force of a small sun. The resulting explosion consumed both ships and much of the Caldari fleet surrounding them. The shockwave rippled outward, damaging ships on both sides. When it cleared, a massive hole had opened in the center of the Caldari formation. Earth's remaining forces, inspired by Thunderchild's sacrifice, pressed the attack. Without their flagship and supreme commander, the Caldari forces fell into disarray. Within hours, they began to retreat. 3 days later, the first Caldari diplomatic vessel approached Earth, transmitting surrender protocols. The message was simple: the hegemony acknowledged humans as equals and sought peace. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Hyun, formerly commander, stood in the observation deck of the orbital shipyard. Below her, Earth was still recovering from the battle. Some coastal cities showed damage from debris that had fallen through the atmosphere, but humanity had survived. She watched as the first of the new Thunderchild-class battleships prepared for launch. Based on her original design, but incorporating lessons learned at terrible cost, these vessels would ensure humanity's place among the stars. The new ship was larger, more powerful, with systems that had been only theoretical when the first Thunderchild was built. On its hull, beside the name UES Thunderchild I, was painted the image of the original ship and the names of its crew. As UES Thunderchild I moved majestically into space, Hyun thought of Captain Tai and his crew. Their sacrifice had transformed humanity from victims to legends, and as the new ship's engines flared to life, she knew the legend was just beginning. In the years that followed, humanity expanded outward again, rebuilding what had been lost. The Caldari hegemony, humbled by defeat, became cautious allies. Other alien races, impressed by human resilience, sought contact and trade. But throughout the galaxy, one story was told again and again: the legend of a single ship that had faced an empire and won.